went through a very, very intense period of grief and loss for the first couple of weeks in particular, which also involved very large amounts of morphine, which didn't help. And I bottomed out very early on in that response and just became completely uncommunicative and just totally inside my own head. And I was lucky that people were able to draw me out of that a bit. But then I do think I parked some of that stuff. I sometimes wonder, even 15 years on, I still feel like there are aspects of it that, maybe I never really addressed fully in my own head. And so I do still reflect and I do still try, and I think it's important not to deny it. But I don't find it that constructive always to do that. And I think I learned early on that you can do all the what ifs that you like, but it's expensive, it's emotionally expensive, because ultimately wherever you go down that path, at some point you've got to get back to the reality that you're existing in.
When I was 22 at the time, I'd actually been through quite a lot in my life in terms of family and things like that. So I felt like at the time I had a pretty good hold on it, and I took to the chair really well, but then things kind of dawned on me when my friends started dropping off. And I think the loss for me was not so much that I wasn't going to walk again, it was more losing my lifestyle than losing my ability to walk. And that was huge for me because my lifestyle was everything. I just wanted to party, I wanted to go to pubs, stay at my mate's place and run amok, and I just kind of lost a sense of myself in the beginning, and I just didn't kind of know what to do at all. I lost my brother recently, and that kind of made me go a fair bit down a dark hole, and being in a chair kind of added to that, and I was clearly losing focus on what was important at the time. So when you're in those stages, it's really important to have a really good support network around you that know you really well, and just to give yourself a break, because you can't do everything.
I don't think I really experienced that great sense of loss or grief during the hospital time. Really, it was when I got home that the losses of spinal cord injury really hit me. The losses in a marriage were big, and I mean, I'm talking to people with spinal cord injuries, so the sexual loss is massive. Healthy marriages are about the give and take between two people, and so I get home and a lot of the ways in which I might be able to contribute to the family are suddenly, how do I participate in family life when I can't take out the damn bins? Or I found parenting really difficult, and to sort of adjust to how do I be a dad when the way I was a dad was to take my kids jumping push bikes into a foam pit. But maybe because I'd had that 20 years of all those things, the loss felt harder to cope with. I wasn't as quickly able to change, I think, as some people. So maybe that adjustment process took me longer. Because I just couldn't work out, it took me a long time to work out how to be a parent.
I was definitely grieving back then. Whether I'm still grieving now, a lot less. Like a lot less, which is amazing to say that, because years ago I think I would never have thought that possible.
I was never going to find someone who was going to love me. I was never going to be able to have a family or raise kids, or all these things that you take for granted growing up, that one day I'll experience that phase in life and I'll be able to do all those things. Like, I was lying in hospital thinking, well, that's all been taken away from me. One of those things was basketball. I was waiting to go and take up a scholarship to play basketball in the States when I had my accident. I kind of felt like all of that was ripped out from underneath me as well, and that I wasn't going to be able to pursue all those dreams and aspirations that I had around competing.
Because I was so concentrated on breathing and staying alive, I didn't have time to grieve. Whenever I get a bit of time or break, I did think about the loss. But then it was like reality snapped in, and I'm just breathing again. But now my breathing is fine. And then I arrived home And I think then I had time to grieve. Just fell into a depression for a little bit. And I had to extricate myself out of my house, which brought me a lot of memories. The area, which brought me a lot of memories, and family, and moving here, and allowed me to start again, reborn again. Now I'm at the mercy of people, and it wasn't good for my spirit, it wasn't good for my psyche.
There's a lot of denial at the beginning. I think everyone has a lot of denial, and then you sort of get a bit of acceptance and you think, oh, it'll be fine. I still go through moments of that. It's just trying to find the positives.
Pretty confronting being asked you're not being able to move and having the machines and everything strapped up to you. And then I kind of got over that when I got in acute and more the rehab side of things too. I was just determined to get out of there, which was my driving point, I think. I think I've kind of gotten to that point where I've moved on and just accepted it and become a better person in myself and kind of just taking on the challenges as they come along.
With a lot of bravado, I sort of hid that side of it. That was an internal thing. I had to show the family and friends that I was going to have a go and I could do this. I cried in private, and I can remember they'd come into the room, a nurse or a sister, or a doctor would come, I'd start crying and I couldn't stop. And I did cry on and off afterwards with my wife and privately, and not what I'd just done to myself, what I'd done to the wife and the kids. Now, I don't cry as much as I used to. Every now and then I still do, very rarely now, about my wife and what's happened. I lost a son. So I think it's easy for people to get depressed and find it difficult to get out of bed. They said getting out of bed some days is going to be harder than others, but it's not impossible. We can feel sorry for ourselves. Most of it we have to do on our own, but there is support out there and there's opportunity to explore the world.